Good afternoon from Westminster. For a specially extended bulletin, Theresa May has announced she will be resigning as Conservative leader on the 7th of June. That's in exactly 2 weeks' time. In a statement in Downing Street, Mrs May said she had done her best to deliver Brexit, but had failed, breaking down in tears as she left the podium.
I will shortly leave the job that it has been the honour of my life to hold. The second female Prime Minister, but certainly not the last. I do so with no ill will, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
So Theresa May also set out what she hopes will be her political legacy. Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is with me. Does she get a political legacy? Isn't she just a colossal failure?
She's trying like crazy in that speech to try and make sure that whoever succeeds her doesn't, in this hustings period that we're now about to approach, lock themselves into what she considers an uncompromising position. It was a message that was stark and clear in that address there. You must compromise. You must be ready to compromise if you're going to get Brexit through. I get the impression it's a party at activist level, at MP level, that isn't quite ready for that message. And the problems that she endured are going to shape this contest and make people more strident. MPs feel she went soft on a strident message, and they're going to try and nail down with commitments the person that succeeds her to commit to coming out on the October the 31st, deal or no deal, and mean it. And they don't think she did.
And every day she stays in office and she remains Prime Minister until there is a replacement. I mean, that sort of inertia presumably just grows.
We always have this sort of limbo, unless someone's been sort of dashed off to hospital as a Prime Minister, when you're selecting their successor, and the Prime Minister hangs around. I mean, this was accused of being a bit of a zombie government when the Prime Minister hadn't announced she was going, but it will be truly a zombie government for the next few weeks as the Tory party immerses itself in a leadership contest.
I think we've got some pictures there of her leaving Downing Street just for now. Of course, she will be back and she'll be there for a while yet. Of course, today's a very strange day in that people, who think she's useless and have wanted her to go, pay tribute to her and say they feel terribly sorry for her, especially as they saw her cry. But where does she sit, do you think, in that sort of list of worst Prime Ministers of the last 100 years?
Well, let's look at it another way. Will it have a wounding effect on the Tory party? The sort of matricide of Margaret Thatcher went on for a generation in the Tory party. It absolutely ruptured the Tory party, and to an extent it still sort of lurks as a wound in the Tory party. I don't think this is the same thing, because patience have been exhausted with Theresa May's approach in the activist base as well as amongst a lot of MPs. When I went around that building on Wednesday trying to find people who would support her staying in power, I found one. A backbencher, and I tried a few ministers, and I tried some cabinet ministers, and I only found one backbencher. This is a different kind of exhausted project, and even if it was a bit late for the penny to drop inside that building, it did drop, and dropped hard, I think, on Wednesday night. In the Pantheon, people are saying, some people say, well, David Cameron, in terms of his strategic objectives, failed monumentally because he wanted Britain to stay inside Europe and it came out of Europe. She has perhaps a similar sort of failure on her history page as well now. She tried to deliver what he handed over and has truly left the project utterly unfulfilled without a clear path to how it can be fulfilled.
Thank you for now. Well, fellow Tory MPs have rushed to pay tribute to Mrs May, describing her statement as incredibly moving and dignified, while former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson said it was now time for the party to come together and deliver Brexit. Paul McNamara has more.
The inevitable moment, the surprise few, but many wanted sooner. Watched on by her husband and loyal Downing Street staff, after 2 years and 315 days in power and weeks of mounting pressure, Theresa May finally took to the lectern.
I feel as certain today as I did 3 years ago that in a democracy, if you give people a choice, you have a duty to implement what they decide. I have done my best to do that.
And then the announcement.
I believe it was right to persevere, even when the odds against success seemed high. But it is now clear to me that it is in the best interests of the country for a new Prime Minister to lead that effort. So I am today announcing that I will resign as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party on Friday the 7th of June, so that a successor can be chosen. I've agreed with the party chairman and with the chairman of the 1922 committee that the process for electing a new leader should begin in the following week.
Brought down by Brexit and the divisions it's driven through the Conservatives, she offered not just advice to her successor, but a warning to the party.
To succeed, he or she will have to find consensus in Parliament where I have not. Such a consensus can only be reached if those on all sides of the debate are willing to compromise.
But Theresa May was desperate that Brexit wouldn't be the only legacy written into the political eulogy she penned herself.
We have helped more people than ever enjoy the security of a job. We are building more homes and helping first-time buyers onto the housing ladder, so young people can enjoy the opportunities their parents did.
She also pointed towards strides to improve the environment, tackle climate change and improved funding for mental health. Before the Prime Minister began addressing the nation this morning, the focus was already shifting onto who would be replacing her. The Defence Secretary maintaining a respectful silence on the issue this morning.
Will you be throwing your hat in the ring to replace her, Minister?
But just minutes before Theresa May walked out of Downing Street, Tory Vice Chair Helen Lewis resigned from her post to throw her weight behind one candidate, a candidate she later announced as Dominic Raab.
Are you going to be announcing your intention to join the race for the leadership of the party?
Well, I don't think we should get ahead of ourselves. I want to see what the results of the European elections are, and I want to see what the Prime Minister says later today.
But talk of who will next lead the nation is for the future. For the present, it was time for Theresa May to say goodbye.
I will shortly leave the job that it has been the honour of my life to hold. The second female Prime Minister, but certainly not the last. I do so with no ill will, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
And with that, Theresa May turned away before showing the nation the emotion many said she always lacked. More tears shed, another Conservative Prime Minister to fall on the sword of Europe.
Some more reaction now. The European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker has praised Theresa May as a woman of courage, saying he viewed her resignation without personal joy. And in the last few minutes, there has been a joint statement from the Tory chairman Brandon Lewis and the two vice chairs of the 1922 committee, thanking Mrs May for her years of service and setting out some of the timetable for the leadership contest to come, with nominations closing in the week beginning the 10th of June. Well, with me now, the Conservative Brexiter Peter Bone. Be honest, you must be cock-a-hoop.
No, the Prime Minister's done the right thing in a very dignified way. We can now get on and choose a new leader of the Conservative Party, a new Prime Minister who will renegotiate in Europe and deliver the Brexit that people voted for.
Do you think her going now makes it more likely that the Conservative Party can remain in government?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I fear the European election results on Sunday night will be dreadful for the party. I think they will be the lowest vote we've ever had, so we would need a new leader. So that new leader can deliver us, if they're the right leader who believes in Brexit, can go on and win the next general election.
And you think that's Boris Johnson?
Well, I think it has to be a leaver. I think it's somebody who's not in any way associated with the terrible withdrawal agreement, therefore nobody in the cabinet qualifies. So it really leaves you with Boris Johnson, Dominic Raab, or Esther McVeigh. All of those would do a very good job. But who's...
So no Andrea Leadsom?
Well, she's, I'm afraid, associated with...
And no Michael Gove?
Both in the cabinet, you see, are associated with the terrible deal. How could you go along with the deal and be a real Brexiteer? So I think one of those three that I mentioned would do it. But then they've got to go on and be Prime Minister, who has authority, who could talk to the President of the United States on first-term names, who can win votes from people that don't normally vote Conservative, who can unite the party, who can go on to lead us to a general election victory. There's only one person, and that's Boris Johnson.
But just a few months ago, before the Brexit Party began, there was a feeling in there that you had to, not you, but MPs would do everything they could to keep Boris Johnson off that final two, because he's so divisive, because he's regarded as having lied about so many things over the years, and that you'd have to go for some other compromise candidate. Nigel Farage has changed all that, hasn't he?
Well, I don't think for 1 minute your description anyway is right about Boris Johnson. He won London.
Well, it's their description of what I mean,
won
not mine.
London, an area that doesn't normally vote Conservative. He got all sorts of... I can remember occasion. He walked onto the pitch at Wembley for an American football game. Everyone cheered. I remember when George Osborne walked onto the Olympic Park, everyone booed. Boris Johnson is the person that can bring people together, who can get them to vote Conservative. He's a one-nation Conservative.
Surely there's got to be an election now, hasn't there? I mean, isn't it appalling that you can have a total change in the direction of the government without a general election?
Well, I think you're right. There's probably going to be a general election. It doesn't have to happen. I mean, what, of course, Theresa May said at her beginning of her premiership, if Boris Johnson was to deliver that, then, of course, that would be a real Brexit. The problem is that Theresa May moved compromise to what she was suggesting was Brexit in name only.
But if you're right, Boris Johnson wins, and then he says, right, we're going to leave deal or no deal at the end of October, Parliament's not going to let him, is it?
Well, there's an Act of Parliament which was voted by a large majority that says that if you get to the end of the Article 50 process, i.e. now the 31st of October, you leave on a no-deal basis.
But that can be changed, can't it? I mean, there could be...
Well, but it would need the Prime Minister to want to change that. I don't think any new leader of the Conservative Party would want to do that, and I will serve under whoever my members of the party choose. But surely the new Prime Minister will have the authority to go and renegotiate in Brussels and bring back a deal that could go through Parliament.
Why?
Because I think he will have
They've only been elected by
he will have the authority.
A small proportion of the country.
He'll be elected by the Conservative Party. He will go and renegotiate. The problem with the Prime Minister, when she had the biggest defeat in Commons history for a deal, she didn't go back and try and change it. Whoever is Conservative leader, whoever is Prime Minister, I think will go back to Brussels and get a much better deal.
Peter Byrne, thank you very much indeed. A correction. We mistakenly said in our report earlier that Helen Lewis had quit her job. In fact, it's Helen Grant who stood down as Conservative Vice Chair to actively support Dominic Raab. So the race to be the next Conservative leader is now on. Who are the contenders? A crowded field of hopefuls has developed, with Boris Johnson seen as the clear favourite among the party membership. Former Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab has emerged as another front-runner, as has Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt. Michael Gove, the Environment Secretary, could also throw his hat into the ring, while Home Secretary Sajid Javid, Rory Stewart, Matthew Hancock, Esther McVeigh, Andrea Leadsom, Penny Mordaunt, the postman and her dog may also decide to put their names forward. Gary is with me again. Is Boris Johnson a shoo-in?
So what he's got to do now, his team feel, is show that he has broad appeal in the party. If there are a bunch of people like Peter Bone who are about to rush out and want to sort of stand round him, arms round him, I think they're going to be put to one side, and I think they're going to try and show that he can maybe reach people like Amber Rudd. I'm not saying she's about to do it, we don't know, but that's the kind of tone he wants to set, that he can be a unifier, but at the same time a Brexiteer. That's their immediate mission. I have to tell you, the campaigns didn't exactly wait for a respectful day or two before hitting the phones, and I've heard from MPs already who've had calls from candidates saying, do you fancy meeting up next week? How about this afternoon? It's all in play immediately. One of the interesting things just listening to Peter Bone there was as well, how he wants to see people's resignation medals. They're all polished and burnished. He's not interested in anybody who stayed at that table. They're damaged goods. And I think there's a lot of that flying around as well. We talked a second ago about how no deal will be absolutely at the heart of these hustings. Are you ready to do it? Not like Theresa May, ready to talk about it, but ready to do it. And that's going to be another medal you've got to wear. Someone like Michael Gove might struggle with that, because one of the reasons he supported her deal was that he actually thought that was a bit of a cliff edge.
And is that because they really fear the Brexit Party? They've got to win those people back?
It is partly to do with that, but it's also the complexion of the Conservative Party these days. We've had a poll quite recently, a very striking one, about the support for no-deal Brexit amongst Conservative activists. They have all poured over that. They pretty much knew where the activists were, but that was confirmation, and very striking confirmation of that. And they think that's where they've got to be, and where a chunk of that party in there as well wants them to be.
Gary Gibbon, thank you very much indeed. Well, our main news today then, Theresa May has announced she will step down as Conservative leader on June the 7th, breaking down in tears as she made her statement outside Number 10, declaring it had been the honour of my life to hold the job.
It is and will always remain a matter of deep regret to me that I have not been able to deliver Brexit. It will be for my successor to seek a way forward that honours the result of the referendum. To succeed, he or she will have to find consensus in Parliament where I have not. Such a consensus can only be reached if those on all sides of the debate are willing to compromise.
We're back tonight at 7 with another specially extended programme analysing everything that's happened here. We might also pick up her quotations of Sir Nicholas Winton of the Kindertransport fame, a woman who, of course, was responsible for the Windrush scandal and all sorts of other things. We'll see you at 7 tonight.